Hi, my name is Nathan, and I have the pleasure of serving as your artificial intelligence representative to introduce our esteemed speaker for today. Together, we will delve into an exciting new opportunity that holds immense potential for funeral homes and insurance agents alike. Today, our speaker will provide a comprehensive review of the groundbreaking prospect we have in virtual funeral aftercare experiences. This innovative approach not only enhances pre-need funeral plans, but also secures the future legacy of your funeral home by generating substantial future business today. Additionally, our speaker will shed light on the various insurance options that can cater to every possible need a family may have. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Eddie L. Pitt, a distinguished individual with over 40 years of experience in death care sales and service within funeral homes and cemeteries. As the organizer of the Commander Initiative and the president and CEO of Cooper Professionals, Mr. Pitt has worked closely with numerous industry affiliates and counseled countless funeral professionals throughout his career. Today, Mr. Pitt will provide an overview of the foundation for the Commander Initiative's National Funeral Insurance and Essential Insurance Protection. This session sets the stage for the security and growth of small to mid-sized funeral homes nationwide. Each of you has been carefully selected to be a part of this core opportunity, and this initial syllabus will ensure that we all possess the fundamental knowledge necessary to excel in this venture, leveraging your unique skill sets and areas of influence. Without further ado, let us extend a warm welcome to Mr. Eddie L. Pitt. We are honored to have each of you present today, as this presentation establishes the groundwork for a secure future. Thank you for your attention and participation.
I'm completely and totally blessed to be able to encompass myself with people of the quality that you guys bring to the table. We have a unique opportunity, because many of the companies who are already dealing with pre-need, they're courting the larger locations, which means our independent funeral homes, the small to mid-size, they have no representation with regard to pre-need. And we know that's the reality. After so many of the laws were passed and the restrictions put in place with regard to what you can do with pre-need money, it became obvious that you don't take that money and go and act like Big Daddy at the bank and put that money in there, because a lot of those funds were canceled and the services weren't rendered. And now it's a lot closer look with funeral homes and pre-need. So the options are limited, and insurance coverage is one of the main options that are being made available through AARP and anybody who deal with pre-need arrangements. But I wanted you guys as the core group to kind of get to know one another, because we may be leaning on one another for information and for things that might be able to enhance what we're doing. Again, you have some varied backgrounds, but as I go through the presentation, I'm very comfortable today to know that I'm somewhat preaching to the choir. I'm talking to people who are familiar with the death care industry, people who are already positioned in the industry, understand the empathy and the sympathy, and what families go through when they have a loss, and already feel the passion for the industry and being able to support the people. So just as we start, let's start with Mr. Wise. Mr. Wise, just tell everybody who you are, where you come from, and what you hope to do with us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Eddie Pitt. Of course, I'm Stanley Wise from Hale, right over here in Baltimore, Maryland. Been in the death care industry since 1991. Had an opportunity to rub shoulders with some magnificent people. I'm not going to list them all, but Eddie Pitt obviously was someone that I had an opportunity to work with and learn a lot from his personality. I mean, everybody has a certain skill set, but the personality, the drive, and the desire just to be of service to people, that I learned a lot of that from Mr. Pitt. So, I'm interested right now and just kind of, laying back and not working as but making just as or just as much or more money than I'm accustomed to. So, that's my goal and desire as I embark upon this new journey in my life. I'm 63 years old. I thank God for every year. Give him glory. So yeah, man. I'm just thankful for the opportunity.
We welcome you, Mr. Wise. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Someone else. Who are you? Where you come from?
This is Terrellyn Kisai, checking in from Greenville, South Carolina. I am relatively new to I heard Mr. Wise say death care business. I've been a licensed insurance agent for a little over a year. And just recently I had the opportunity to move into funeral directing. So now I am an intern or an apprentice. This was on my application, FD apprentice. And I was just looking forward to learning more about this side of the business. I've done strictly insurance sales, certain area of final expense up until now. So I'm looking at learning more about the pre-need side of it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent. Terrellyn, we welcome you. Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you. Someone else.
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Tucker. I'm out of Peoria, Illinois. I work for a firm, Colonial Chapels, where I'm the funeral director there. I've also previously done the pre-need program at TW Parks. I had to leave for a moment. I'm taking care of some personal endeavors, but I am back. So we are looking forward to it back up.
I'm glad to have you back too. When she talked about endeavors, she went out and did it all. Come back to Mama's Funeral Home as a licensed director. So she's an owner. And I mean, actually, Cherie and I was in the field knocking on doors 14 years ago, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, someone else. Mr. Preston, Moni, who are you?
I'm trying to figure out how this thing works. All right. Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm very glad to be here. I wish everyone a very beautiful day. It's very exciting to embark upon something new. I've been in different businesses. As a matter of fact, I was raised in a business on both sides of my family. Reference to distributorship in Washington, D.C. to a skating rink in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I've been a little around the thing. I've had my own business and non-emergency medical transportation. And in my life, it seems like I've been able to what's the word I want to use? Serve. Because what we're doing, we're serving people in an aspect of the last proceedings of their life. So this is a service that the family needs, but we would need it one day ourselves. But this is something that I think that is be a new embarkment for me, and I'm just glad that you guys have welcomed me to the team. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Nellums, we welcome you. Appreciate you being here. We all going to another level because we are faced with the knowledge and whatnot for insurance sales and licensing. We're a unique breed of people. We're not just drop-ins, Moni Scott, where are you from? Who are you? Ingrid? That's Ingrid. You're muted. You are muted.
Hello.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
My name is Ingrid Scott, aka Mo. and licensed in 1998. And I worked for one funeral home for like 20 plus years, and now they no longer exist. So I love what I do. I love the industry. I live in Baltimore. I'm from Los Angeles by way of, I live in Baltimore, but I grew up in Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley area. I'm a workaholic, and I can't think of anything else because I'm sitting in this airport. And don't y'all ever take Frontier Airlines. It's too hard on a person.
Mm-mm. That's horrible.
But I'm I'm on my way to help someone. And if it was my shoes, she would be there for me also. But I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Well, I really
Anytime you need me, give me a holler.
Fantastic. I appreciate your being here, Ingrid. We look forward to working with you. Militia, who knows what she might be doing. Militia is the VP for our funeral service here in Chicago and the Yorkville area. And she also is the owner of Grace and Mercy Funeral Services. So she'll have the privilege of looking at this recording once we get everything set in place. As well as that, we have a couple other people who are in poise or in position to become active. But it was my position that we needed to kind of slow down and make sure everybody was on the same page who's involved, because there are a lot of moving parts to what we're doing. As I said, we're kind of preaching to the choir with all of the folks that we have here. But just to be certain that we've covered all of our bases, we have to have some of the conversation. And you guys can chime in if you please, or if you have questions that would benefit anybody who was being a part of the training program. But why would a funeral home provide advanced planning? You know, number one, it provides financial stability for the funeral home, offers better customer service to the families, provide competitive advantage against larger companies. Because if you don't do pre-need, the conglomerates are going to do pre-need. They're going to do follow-up and get your families. It helps to build long-term relationship with the families and provides peace of mind for the clients. I mean, in my opinion, one of the worst things that could happen with the funeral home would be that someone come into a funeral, they lost a loved one or a friend, and they instantly start to feel that they need to start doing something regarding their final estate, their final arrangements. And they ask the magic question, can I prearrange with you? And for a funeral home not to be able to say yes and have direction for the family, in this day and time, that's going to pass by like the dinosaur. Now, when we look a little farther, we as the Commander Initiative, just for general information, for the last several years, we've been pooling funeral homes, gaining members to pool their spending and to save money on the products and the services that they render for the families. So we have over 300 now, and they're getting discounts from over 40 to 50 vendors that are positioned in the death care industry. So what we've done to build that team has actually been very productive for the funeral homes. When we look at what we were doing with our pre-need, however, we had a couple of companies in for pre-need, and I won't mention them. But again, the companies sort of lean toward the larger funeral homes that were having 100, 300, 400 services a year, because that one funeral home could provide a living for 2 or 3 agents. So they really would go in and give an exclusive territory and agreement, which means now they cannot do business with the smaller to mid-sized funeral home in that area. What we've done with our program, and when we found Symmetry, we disconnected all of our pre-need companies and affiliations, and we run now through the Association of Symmetry with over 40 different insurance companies, where we can now offer these services to our 300 plus funeral homes across the country. Now, as you all start, one of the things that's most important is that we have funeral homes that we're looking to provide services for, which gives us leads and people to see. But at the same time, Symmetry has a variety of people who are selling insurance. They're selling mortgage protection, life and health insurance, disability, retirement. And all of that training is available too. But not only do you have that opportunity, but each of you have an opportunity to build your own team, build your own legacy, and we will help you to do that. Because as we spread across the country, you may have an account that's in Arkansas. You're not in Arkansas, but tomorrow, if you need an agreement written in Arkansas through Symmetry, we have an agent that's in Arkansas that can write that agreement. And you can split those commissions. And if you build enough activity in Arkansas for about $50 to $60, you can become a non-resident agent in Arkansas, California, Florida, or whatever state you might want to do business in. So today we're excited because we lay the foundation now for what will be the core of the business, where you have leads and people that you can see and people who've seen a body in a casket or cremation, and they're ready to take care of their arrangements. But at the same time, those families will get married, they will have marriages, they will have babies later on, there will be different relationships, they will grow older. Those relationships that you build is a solid book of business that will serve generations in your family, because with what we're doing in Symmetry, your book of business is your book of business. What you build, where you nail that nail into the wall, you build something that you can stand on, and that matters. To build your own. And I often talk about, everybody got to work. But when you're working for somebody else, you're building their dreams. Now this is real. We can look at you building your dreams. What were your hopes and what were your aspirations? We got over 30 companies that we're writing for. And when we look at the top companies, you each start at 80% commission. That's a nice commission rate for a new individual coming into the business. Well, it's all done for you automatically. Once your information is in and you're licensed, your information is automatically sent to these insurance companies. There's a main database that has all your information in it, so you don't have to keep filling out contracts, worrying about this, worrying about that. You just wait for them to email you and say you've been approved, or they email you and say, well, we might need something else to get you approved as an agent. Some of the companies, all you have to do is write a contract and now you're appointed with them. But that really matters to have those products. But at the same time, we don't need all of those products to write advanced planning for a funeral home, but it's good to have it in your portfolio. And some of us will go on and learn those products and do capital investments and everything else. But some of us may just stay with the funeral clients. It just really doesn't matter. But each of you have the opportunity to build outside of the funeral realm. Now, when we look at pre-planning for the funeral home, which is the foundation of what we're talking about, funeral homes need to have a pre-need program in place to set the future as stability for that location. If you don't have any pre-need, somebody's getting the pre-need. And I'll tell you what, if they get grandmama, then all of a sudden everybody else going to follow grandmama away from your funeral home. So you have to make it available. Therefore, funeral homes that act quickly to implement a pre-need program will have a better chance of achieving long-term sustainability and profitability. We have the ability right now, if a family walked into a funeral home and said, I would like to pre-arrange, we have the ability right now to have an agent write that agreement anywhere in the country. The security that it provides for the family and the funeral home is significant. The future of the funeral home is tied directly into their ability to do pre-arrangements because those monies are realistic. When you look at the purchase of a funeral home, people who are financially sound look at what do you have in pre-need. And if you have some pre-need business, that's added to the value of the funeral home. If you don't have any pre-need, which don't really cost anything, then it doesn't add any value to the funeral home. Now, let's look at the reality when you talk about security, as you guys can see here. A funeral home with a strong pre-need sales program, the ratio is 30 to 70% or higher, which means if you have 100 funerals, there are going to be 30 or 70 pre-need contracts. If your funerals are averaging close to 10,000, then you're looking at $300,000 in funeral that will be coming into your funeral home. as opposed to having no pre-need activity. I know at TW Parks, there where Shar is, they're still burying people who had pre-need programs that we set up 14 years ago. Funeral home with limited emphasis on pre-need sales, lower ratio, 10 to 30%. They have 100 funerals, they'll get 10 to 30 contracts. And those are people who stumble in and say, will you just sell me something? I'd like to have a funeral with your funeral home. It's that simple. And unfortunately, some funeral homes don't have anything in place that will allow them to even do that, other than maybe tell them, start a savings account and don't touch the money and stuff like that. Well, we know for a fact, if you start a savings account intending not to touch the money, anything can happen. It's our responsibility. Now let's look at why the families pre-plan funerals. Luckily, we're here with you guys. I mean, it's like preaching to the choir, so I don't have to go through all of this. They get funerals because, you know, the family can start fighting. If you've been in a family fight over funeral stuff, you'll never let it happen again. And many people have. The peace of mind knowing that you got your business taken care of. What kind of service did you want? Or the peace of mind in knowing the kids ain't gonna have to take care of all of that. They make certain their wishes are honored. Those things matter today. But a successful aftercare program is the foundation for the pre-need program. What we want everybody to understand, and that's why we set the foundation today, we're not going in on the aftercare program to make a sale or to do anything like a vulture. We're going in there on behalf of the funeral home. We're going in to find out how they felt about the services that were rendered. We're going to go in and give them some information on grief, some counseling, the 7 stages, and then documents on how to recapture your life. You know, bank accounts, where the bank accounts are, the insurance policies, and all that kinds of stuff. Those are the things that we kind of help them review. You know, nobody else is coming. The cavalry is not coming. But I will tell you the conglomerates will come if we don't set up an appointment. See, if the funeral home scheduled the appointment, when the conglomerates call, they'll say we have an appointment, or they don't have the need to schedule an appointment with somebody else. That's why the families come to the funeral home first, and we need to do what we need to do at the funeral home to make sure we follow through with that family, those marriages, and those children that happen later on. I'm trying to race through this, guys. If you want to step in, please stop and say a little something. But when we talk about aftercare, it's just a set of services, the grief counseling, direction in closing out their family affairs, satisfaction survey we take, educational guide for advanced planning, and memorial events. You know, come back to the cemetery for candle lighting and things of that nature. That's aftercare. You know, if you've lost someone, which many of us have, I lost my wife to breast cancer. You know, there's a process of getting back on your feet. You know, I spent a couple of weeks before I even cried. You know, everybody said, Mr. Pitt, you're so strong. And I'm realizing it's like, y'all just don't know. But that's what we do. We know that families are going through these things, and it's our responsibility to be there and not to be saying something stupid like they going to a better place or it's better off now and all this kind of stuff. We need to be professional in our pursuit, having conversation with families that can be comforting because we're professionals. A lot of that's going to come along with your training. But what's in the aftercare packet? That questionnaire that's in the aftercare packet is the main portion of the program. Let's take a look at that. That questionnaire gives us an opportunity to sit with that family and find out how they felt about the services that were performed. So here we have the name of the deceased and whatnot, but we're asking questions, and this is scripted material. You'll get scripts, and you're all going to get a flash drive with the information and the PowerPoint so that you don't have to worry about flat documents, and you'll be able to load them into your computer. And from your computer, it'll go right into your PowerPoint presentation that you're going to be able to do online. But the professionalism of the staff, the appearance of the funeral home, you know, how did it look? You know, let's face the nation. If you've got a crappy funeral home and somebody won't tell you about it, you need to hear about it. You know, you may not be able to get it fixed right away, but at least you can put it on the list. But we bring that document back to the funeral home so they can assess what they're doing. We ask about the emergency record guide because the emergency record guide is the book that gives them an opportunity to write down what their wishes would be and the things that are necessary when death occur for families who have planning in advance. And again, when we say planning in advance, you can plan in advance without spending a dime. You know, some of the materials and the documents that are needed can be gathered. But we leave them with the document here, the 7 stages of grief. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. You know, when we're in the home with those families, if they had a death within the last couple of weeks, they're in one of these stages of grief. You know, it's unfortunate that families go through that, but we help them identify that if we're doing our job, help them identify those stages of grief. And then they can kind of feel where they are so that they don't have to start lashing out at people, because that's what happens a lot of times. And we leave them a copy of the emergency record guide. You know, the emergency record guide, a simple booklet. They get it, email, documents. I mean, and I go through this kind of fast, guys. Stop me if you have to, but I know you guys, I know Stanley and some of you guys are already doing this same thing. You know, this is what we do. The information that we're sharing here, you're asking questions, you know, wills and documents. Do you know where all of your documents are? You know, the insurance policies, bank accounts. Do each of you know if something were to happen to one or both of you, what would happen? What kind of decision would you like to make? Your personal history. Where's your wife's mother's maiden name? Where are your family from? What would she want if something happened? Does she want cremation? Would she want to be in a mausoleum? Would she want ground burial? Asking. They now have to think about these certain things, and just thinking about them makes it reality that we need to address them. And
Hey, Eddie.
yes,
Eddie, where are
yeah.
these records maintained? Are they maintained with each individual team, individual person who's doing the questionnaire in reference to a specific person? Is it with the funeral home that they select? Who keeps these records of this information?
Well, now, with regard to the pertinent information in the emergency record guide, we even suggest that they may put that in the security box at the bank and let family know that that book does exist. But the other information regarding what their final arrangements are and the things that they're going to be doing, that information is, these policies are left with the funeral home. The funeral home has to have definite information on what you sold, which plan they have, so that when death occurs, they can just pull out the file and, you know, have the information that they need for the services. But the emergency record guide, you know, I mean, a family can leave it at the funeral home, but in this day and time, probably a lot of people just want to keep it somewhere, you know, put it in the Bible. But the most important thing, and I'm sure you agree, is that if they start filling this book out. I mean, when I visit with families, I said, promise me that you'll take time and start to fill this book out, because it does matter. Veterans information, DD 214 papers, Social Security benefits, that 255. A lot of people still think they're going to get money from Social Security. We know they're not. But in going through this, the family financial status, I mean, come on now. Yeah, I mean, a lot of families don't have joint accounts, you know. And he got an account, she got an account, they got an account, we got an account. If something happens, a lot of times these monies are lost. Families never get these benefits. You know, the worst thing that could happen, a person pass on and have benefits that the family is entitled to, and they don't get them. Unbelievable, but it happens all the time. So by leaving the book and bringing this to thought and mind, families can now start to do some of this in advance. And that's just what we do. Who should be contacted if something happens? Come on now. There are people that, I mean, come on, there are people that should be contacted, and there are other people you probably don't want contacted. But realistically speaking, leave the family some guidelines, leave some direction so people know what to do if something were to happen. You know, a lot of us, we look at all of this and we need to start doing certain things ourselves, you know, that we haven't taken care of. And in the midst of all of this, what we're doing with families is bringing it to a spot where they can understand it. Now, with the emergency record guide, what is that guide for? We left that guide with the family just had a death about a week ago. As we went over this guide, the first thing they started saying was, I wish I had this guide. because this could have really helped if I had that information. If I had that information, as you see, as we look at all the information in here. But the follow-up question for us when we finish the guide is to actually just find out who in the family you think might benefit from this record guide. You know, we're willing to make sure each family member gets one. Family members will also have the opportunity to look at their financial situation. You know, do they have insurances? Have they taken care of funeral arrangements? Once we get the name, we'll make them recipients of an information packet that will give them an opportunity to review some of this information. And in many cases, families find that benefit very beneficial because they're now able to do things that they wish they had done, hoped they had done, but never got around to. You know, so that's what aftercare is all about. When we go into the home, you know, we're just going in, getting those questions answered, and we're being there. You know, when the funeral happens, there are several family members and friends who would like to get something done. They just want something done. And they'll ask, or if the information is made readily available, you can prearrange here. Many of the insurance companies are going to have flyers and things that they can put up in the funeral home. When you go to the bathroom, you're going to see something that you can prearrange. Everywhere you go in that funeral home, there's going to be something relating to you doing something in advance. So guess what? If you ever thought about it, now is the time. And if you are thinking about it, now you have an agent, or now I am an agent, and we'll have an opportunity to get that family the protection. And it's urgent. Because if I thought I might do it today and don't do it tomorrow, you could be dead. I mean, that's real, guys. I'm just saying reality. We have to put that level of urgency on making people have the opportunity to take care of their arrangement. So when we look at all of it in time, it's just an effective delivery system that's needed. It requires teamwork. And there are two people that are working real easy. The funeral director that takes the in call and the family service counselor or agent. It's that simple, without a whole lot of carrying on. 1, 2, 3. Funeral director completes the first call details, and the funeral director introduces the counselor. On the phone, you can open up a Zoom contact, or the counselor can be in the location. Although we have the privilege of working from home, hey, and nothing wrong with getting dressed up going into a location either. You know, so we have those privileges, and you can be invested. I mean, come on, if you got a high-profile funeral coming into the location, yeah, you want to be introduced in person, dressed up in the nines. And the counselor, when they're introduced, they just set an appointment for 5 to 7 days after the funeral. And you do it with every family. Every family. That's where you get the 30 to 70 contracts. Because every time a funeral happens, you got a bunch of people who would love to have their arrangements taken care of. And many of them, they don't have no other way to take care of it. They got little menial jobs, not making a lot of money, but they can afford to make little $30 or $40 a month payments. If somebody give them a chance, and they don't become a burden on their family. That's what we do, guys. That's what we do. As a funeral director, we're responsible for making it available to our families. And as an agent, we're responsible for harboring the mentality to help us understand how serious it is what we're doing. And that we do everything that we possibly can to get in front of that family, expose them to an opportunity. And once they've been exposed to an opportunity, you don't have to beat people up. You know, you don't have to all this closing. No. There are enough people who want our product. Just get in front of those people and give them a chance to get this taken care of. And again, I mentioned the accountability. It's going to be important that we're accountable to the funeral home. Writing contracts and the funeral home don't get a contract and don't know who you sold, don't know what it is, unacceptable. All of that's going to be a requirement as we lay our foundation, so we can expect that as we go forward. A copy of all the pertinent documents and everything that went as a part of that contract. And then a quarterly productivity review. What did you do? What didn't you do? What you gonna do next? That easy. It's very non-complicated, but that helps everybody that's involved. Communication is a key because you don't have to wonder what funeral director walking around. I tell you, honest to God, I don't mind being honest. I think it was 20 years ago, a funeral director told me, I don't trust you. And I'm looking, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what do you mean you don't trust me? I ain't done nothing but brought you pre-need funerals. But that lack of communication causes that kind of problem. But when you're having the quarterly sessions, here's who I saw, here's what's happening here, here's what we're gonna be doing, and here's how you can help. Here's what we need to do better. That's just simple communication. Every 3 months, that's real easy. That's the end of the presentation. Now, you guys have that information because you're going to use that to help establish new funeral home locations. Many of you who have the opportunity to do so, because there are many funeral homes, 300 as a matter of fact, that are part of the organization, and many others who are not a part of the organization that need to have something set up for pre-need. They don't have it 30 funerals a year, okay? They don't have to be a big guy in this game. 30 funerals a year could be quite an income for somebody who might have 3 locations with 30 funerals a year, along with all the follow-up and the other activity that'll be created. So let me stop that one right there. Anybody have any questions so far before we go directly into our next presentation, which actually goes into the details about a presentation that we're going to share when we go into the home? I'll take a moment now and I'll take questions, statements, comments.
This is Terrell, and I have a question. So, pertaining to the last presentation at the very end, where you did the funeral director introduces the counselor, who then talks to the family or sets up in a time with the family. Our role is the counselor. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Okay. Right. My second question is, do we have the opportunity outside of setting appointments to actually do that, or all the stuff that we're trying to get somebody else to do? Can I go ahead and set that up for myself, because I don't have that stuff in my, you know.
And you do your pre-arrangements and all of that? Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I have insurance, but I don't have like all those the documentation, all of that stuff. Sadly, yes. I mean, I would want to know. I would want to do it for myself, just because it needs to be done and before I, sell to somebody else or present.
By doing it, it gives you another level of confidence too. It's like I saw the importance in it. I took care of my own because it just makes sense. Matter of fact, here's a copy of my contract. You see your name on it. That gives people confidence. For some people, you might need something like that to get them to come across the finish line and say, yes, I'll do it. But again, at the same time, I would tell you, my wife and other people who are in sales, and I mean, I was a top salesperson, but they always say I'm the softest salesperson. Because when I give you the education, everything I can, either you can buy it or not. I'm not going to sit in there and start dueling with you about no money and all this kind of stuff. It's either you want it and I got to help you afford it, or you don't want it and call me later on when you do. And that's the way you should be doing as salespeople, because so many salespeople leave a bad taste in people's mouth. It's like, oh my God, that was a horrible experience. The person got all mad because they didn't make their commission and left the table, and they're acting all silly. That ain't good. So in our training and what we do, we teach our way past that type of behavior, because it doesn't help the client, nor does it help the salesperson. Because you dig yourself deeper. You'll be inspired when you leave the family. Inspired, why? Because I know I did the best I can. That's all I came to do, the best I can. Come on, somebody. Now, let's look at the presentation. Now, when you got in the house, you did the questionnaire and everything, finding out how they felt about the funeral service, and how they felt about the way that the cars were the cars clean, did they clean the funeral home up with the furniture, and people will say stuff now, and the funeral home need to hear that stuff. Again, they may not have it as something that they can do next week, but it needs to go on the list if people are talking about it. But we give them a chance to talk to the funeral home instead of talking to the neighborhood, because if they say that and the funeral home get it, the funeral home calls, say, I'm glad that you brought that to our attention. We have been looking at that challenge and stripping that sofa, and we're going to get on that as soon as possible. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Y'all follow me? But here's the presentation. Now, those referrals that you got, the people who attended that funeral, the names that you got from the people who were paying for that funeral. We didn't go in to get a sale from those people, although they might make you sell them while you're there.
Wait, Eddie, say that again a little slower.
When you go in there, you're doing the questionnaire, you're doing the family emergency record guide, and you're not trying to sell them anything. They just buried their wife. They just buried their husband, their son, their daughter. So it's too emotional time now to start trying to get a sale from them. So you're just going through the questionnaire, you get names of people who attended the funeral, and then those are the people who you're going to go and sell. But I also say, while you are there, the family that had that death last week, took care of their husband, they may force you to go in and write a contract for them. Now, I mean, obviously, if they are willing and able to go on and take care of the agreement, you're going to go on and take care of it. And in many
Okay, so since I'm the grasshopper here and everybody have a little experience in this, I'm going to ask the question as basically we will be giving our cards, business cards or flyers or whatever reference to the people who attend the funeral and indulging them to facilitate the purpose of what we're doing of the family protection or pre-protection for themselves or family members.
That questionnaire that you took into the home, and then you gave them that booklet that talk about where your finances are, what insurance policies you got and all that, right? When you finish your presentation, you're going to ask that family, who in your family do you feel could benefit from having this booklet? Because they're going to receive this booklet, your compliments. They're going to also receive an opportunity to pre-arrange and take care of insurance needs and things of that nature as well.
Correct.
So now you're going on to those people as a referral from the person who died and their spouse and their relative that took care of those arrangements.
Okay.
So now as you're in there, this is when this presentation comes in. This is a presentation, of course, that gives the more emotional approach to the family, because obviously if you just had a death, I don't need to build any emotion because you live in the emotion because of the loss that you had. But this presentation now, Uncle David gave me your name and said that you could benefit from this personal protection guidebook that we have here. And I want to go over a few things with you because you were at the service at TW Parks. You know, TW Parks set us up to set these appointments so that you can get a vast amount of information with regard to what benefits you might be entitled to. But first, here are my credentials. You know, you might want to take a screenshot or something of that. We feel it's a real privilege to be able to take care of this virtually. You know, this wasn't a privilege that we had in the past, but this is a privilege that we have today, where you get a chance to review the benefits and the options that you have. And again, my name is Eddie Pitt. There's my national producer number. But when we look at TW Parks Colonial Chapel, there's a particular reason why Sharon put these programs together. You know, down through the years, we found that many families never take a few minutes to discuss the subject. You know, what would you do if something would happen to one or both of you? You know, it just don't happen. Many never had to make arrangements. Fortunately, you know, many people never had to go and pay for a funeral, pick out a casket, and go through all the things that are involved with making final arrangements. So now I'm giving this presentation now, right? That's the reason why Sharon put this program together. That's the reason why this program is available through the funeral home. Who would be responsible for your arrangements if something were to happen to you, Mr. Davis? And you're going to say my wife, right? Well, okay, God forbid if something would happen to both of you, who would be responsible? In most cases, now we're looking at children that ain't able to take care of nothing. So now we got to be responsible for making sure they don't have to go through that. If they were deaf yesterday, what would your family be doing today? And it gives them an opportunity to think about that. You know, what would my family be doing if I'm going? If I'm pushing up daisies, what would my family be doing? Have I prepared adequately for that? You know, I always told my wife I love her. I always told the kids I love them to pieces.
This is ironic. You know, this is ironic. This is the way things unfold. They say sometimes the opportunity comes to you with the pro lines of how you living. And I had just had this discussion with my daughters. That's
really?
why yes. So I'm really interested in this for myself, as well as being a representative to serve other people to help with that. So yeah, that actually is, you know, you're answering some questions for myself. I'm living exactly what you're saying right now. I lived that last week, 2 weeks ago.
Well, I tell you what, it's for thousands and thousands of families across the country. That's what positions us. That's where our authority comes from. That's where our foundation to be able to have great earnings come from, because we provide a great service. Because if nobody educates them, if they don't get to run across somebody like you with that information, and if something happens before they do, it's a challenge in so many cases. I'm sure you would agree, Mr. Davis, there'd be many things to do, unless we made a list of about 124 separate things about somebody got to be responsible for. As you're giving the presentation, right? Somebody got to gather the vital statistics. Someone got to do the cemetery arrangements, the funeral arrangements, collect legal documents, and people that must be notified, and even worse, the bills that must be paid. Future plans must be thought out. Are we going to stay in this house? Will we be able to financially stay in this house? What will our future look like without our deceased loved one? Because you don't just lose a loved one. In many cases, you can also lose an income. This becomes real. Well, Mr. Davis, Mrs. Davis, the first area of responsibility can be taken care of by filling out the emergency record guide. And we went through that guide a few minutes ago. That's the one that talks about all the things that they got to do. Well, your presentation is set up to where all you do is click that book and you go back into that guide now with this family. Someone has arranged to pay for the funeral service, someone has arranged to pay for the final resting place, and you go through that guide. Now, you just walked into a family's home, loving family. You gave the presentation. They went to a funeral a couple of weeks ago, and now you're going through this guide, asking them and reminding them of certain things that they haven't had at top of mind. But now they move 1,000 things that they had as a privilege and a purpose. They move 1,000 things to the bottom of the list. And now all of a sudden, the security for their family moves to the top. And as you move that priority to the top, then we have the privilege now to go on and continue to strive to help them understand. Consider this, Mr. and Mrs. Davis. And I zip through this. When we plan a wedding, a childbirth, a graduation, a vacation, we don't just let that happen, we plan it. Why would you let a death occur when we know it's going to happen? Decisions you make today will have a profound impact on the future and the future in your family. Families who don't make a decision in advance, who leave it to the last minute, they end up with arrangements and cemeteries that might not be particularly proud of. A funeral home, the older cars, the older establishment, the smell and everything associated with that's not properly kept. But when you plan in advance, you have the opportunity to have some of the prestigious locations that are available, such as TW Parks and what they do to try and satisfy their families. The difference is like night and day. The sad thing is many families will pay more at the last minute for property that's not properly maintained than we pay for pre-need programs. When you look at everything that you do, you file protection for theft, auto, your car insurance, your home insurance, protecting yourself for things that may never happen. I don't know if you had a car accident lately, or if your house burned down, or if your house was broken into. But one thing we know is inevitable: a death. We know it's going to happen. When you're protecting yourself for so many other things, why wouldn't you protect yourself for the loss of a loved one? There are only two ways to do it. You do it the wrong way, or you do it the right way. And you talk about that. And then you say the right way is, number one, this is wise, economical, love. And the wrong way is that, and da-da-da-da-da. Here's the average cost that a family will face. And I just zoomed through this because it's kind of like preaching through the choir. You guys are going to have this information and you can look at it later. And you also have the script where you can go through it and find out what best suits your personality to be able to share that information. Talks about what inflation is going to do in the coming years for these products and services, the reality of it, and what people are going to be paying. Years ago, people never dreamed that they'd be paying $1,000 for opening and closing because it was $30. They never dreamed, but inflation does what inflation does. So with the program from TW Park, today's costs are frozen. They have some programs that they've set up for their families where they can now freeze the cost of their funeral service. And what happens here is the funeral home has the privilege to determine what those costs are. For an example, if today a funeral might be $10,000, then they'll get a policy whole life where they can get smaller premiums as opposed to a pre-need policy. And they'll get a policy now for $14,000 to cover the cost of that funeral. Depending on their age and how we work the back of that, the funeral director now can guarantee that funeral for $14,000. and the person dies before that cost is risen, then the family can get that benefit as a rebate. But now, as we go into this portion of the program, and again, that was for you guys. The sovereign is a package. The funeral director chooses what that package is. The revelation is a package. The funeral director chooses what they're willing to give at that price. The essential is what we call good. And the other programs are better, best. Good, better, best. Least expensive funeral, $9,995. Includes a limousine and one of those minimum metal caskets. So now the family has an opportunity to look at the cremation, the direct cremation, whatever their choices are, whatever their options for paying are. And then they select a package that they would prefer, whether it be the good, better, best, or some type of cremation package. But then now as a counselor, you'll go in and, without going through all of that, you'll have the privilege of the quote finder, which will now take you in so that you can go and start to put the person's information in. And then they will let me do one where this is Illinois. The person 5 feet, and they're 9 inches, the age is 54, weighs 178, don't smoke, no other field, you want to get, what's the purpose? Final expense. Don't have any of those other illnesses, so we search that. And then they give me 3 companies to select a product from. So